Hi, everyone. This is Victoria English, top coach with Project 90. We have a really special episode today. We are being joined by some of our members. We're going to be discussing barriers to entry. What kept you from facing your issue with alcohol? What chatter was going on in your head? And how did you overcome it? And what is your perspective like now that you're in Project 90 with us? So thanks everyone for being here. But of course, before we get started, I've got to give you some free stuff. Over here at Alcohol Free Lifestyle, you can get your hands on the Alcohol Freedom Formula. Just go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. If you are a high achiever, like our members today, and you're sick of the chatter in your head, ready to finally get power over this alcohol thing, book a call. You can talk with me, Coach V. Simply go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. You book the call. We have a chat. Let's see if you're a fit. So we are going to dive right in. We have 6 amazing members. You know, here at Project 90, we pride ourselves on having a really close community. If you're anything like me, you know lots of people. You have some really close friends, maybe family members. And you also have that facade that you wear when you are out being you, in air quotes. When you come into Project 90, there is a sense of community that you're not going to find anywhere else. Sometimes even with your best friends, the people you talk to about everything, you may not feel comfortable talking about this one thing. And as you know, James, Sarah, and I have curated a community of like-minded people who don't just have this one thing in common. We have so much in common. And when you come in, you feel like you're with friends and you don't have to wear a mask and you can talk about this one hard thing. Everyone's in the same boat. And I don't know, people call it the P90 family, and I agree with it. We have people from all over the world, but people say when they come in, they have found their tribe. So thank you to our members of the tribe who are here today, giving their time and their insight. So let's talk about barriers to entry. I certainly had this chatter going on for years before I finally did it and got this thing behind me. Let's start with Travis. Hi, Travis.
Hi, Coach V.
So tell us a little bit about your experience.
I think this is something for me that I've wrestled with for a long time. I feel like I've known that I've had an issue around drinking for probably the better part of the last 10 years or so. And it's something that I've really battled and thought hard about for the last 18 months. I would say really since the start of the COVID pandemic. And I did a lot of start-stop. I would quit drinking for a while and promise myself I would quit drinking and maybe go a couple weeks. I think once I even went a full month, but it would always come back. And I think the thing that really hurt me or kept me coming back is I would feel like I was missing out on something because all of my friends in my social circles, drinking was a heavy part of that. I like to watch a lot of sports games with my buddies where there's a lot of beer involved. My wife and I really like to go out to nice dinners where there's good wine. And I felt like it was something that if I were to stop permanently, I would be giving something up in my life. And I know what we're going to talk more about this, but something that Project 90 has really helped me with is realizing how much more there is to be gained by not drinking. And so I've reframed this in my mind a little bit.
The listeners obviously can't see us, but if I were to ask right now, how many of you can relate to Travis? Everyone would raise their hands. And it's so common. Yes, that sense of deprivation. What am I going to miss out on? And, you know, Travis, that's a huge reframe for you because Travis is still in the first third of the 90-day program. So in this short amount of time, Travis has come in, like I said, he found his tribe. He was able to get really honest and vulnerable about this, and process it. Because in Project 90, I can't tell you how to feel about your relationship with alcohol. I can't tell you how it should be. I can guide you. That's the coaching. We guide you and provide prompts so that you create your own truth. You guys hear me talk about cognitive dissonance all the time on the calls and on this podcast, because finding freedom from this thing has to be your truth, no one else's. And that's what Travis is finding. He's finding the reality for him. And that's where the freedom comes. So Travis, I know you've had some social outings and some activities with your guy buddies. How has it been different? What's the experience been like?
So one thing I've discovered, because I was afraid in this depriving myself, and I think another barrier to entry for me is feeling like I would be ostracized socially and that I would lose out on some of my friend groups. And I realized that the chatter is mostly just in your own head. Something that Coach James talks about in some of his videos is that people really only care about themselves. You're thinking about yourself when you're not drinking. You're thinking about yourself when you are drinking. And your friends are all like that too. And so part of what Project 90 has taught me and helped me with is it's not when you're with your friends and they ask if you want to drink or why you're not drinking, it's not about being, sad or saying, "Oh, I can't drink right now," or "I'm trying to take a break." It's more like just being confident and saying, "Actually, I'm taking a break right now, and it feels pretty good. I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing, and it's really working for me." But you guys go ahead, have beers, like do
Right.
whatever you'd like to do. We're going to, or I'm going to just stick with water. But it's great. Let's have
Yeah.
fun. And I found that really really works. And honestly, people don't care. They don't care.
Exactly. They really don't. Yeah, I hear that all the time. The way we build it up in our head, it's so big. And then you do it, you show up and you're like, I'm good. I'm having a great time. That's yes, we definitely teach that. We say don't stay home. Don't hole up for 90 days. Get out and live your life and experience it alcohol free and find out if it's really better with alcohol, or ta-da, you can have a really good time without it. Those positive reinforcements, those positive experiences, the more you get those during this 90 days, the more success you're going to have, the more confidence, like Travis said. Um, Speaking of big events, let's hear from Jonah. What's your experience been like?
Hey, yeah, it was in the beginning, pre P90. I can say that most of my experience is very similar to Travis. I'll say like all of my friends pretty much drink. And I mean we go and there's times that we go in like really, really hard. And being able to take breaks like what Travis was talking about, and having those conversations with them, they would say to me sometimes, "Oh man, you don't have a problem, man. You can quit. Like you take time off, and you know what I mean. You don't have a problem with alcohol. You can limit your drinking, or you took a month off. You're not an alcoholic. Or, you know what I'm saying? You're not. And so, I followed James for years on Instagram. Like probably since like 2016 or something like that. And so it's always been something in the back of my head, like I want to, this is something that I want to try to figure out. What is life like without it? And and moving forward, jumping into the program, and looking back on the reasons why I didn't, right? Taking this extended amount of time that like I was having this conversation earlier, taking this extended amount of time, 90 days, really gives you an opportunity to not just like cleanse your body, which is like amazing in itself, but then also to like, after that initial cleanse, like start a pattern of like living like a normal life without
Okay.
alcohol, and you get to see that, as opposed to just cleansing your body, right?
Yes.
And so looking back on it, you know, I wouldn't have considered myself to have a problem with alcohol, right? But
Right.
now, like coming up on 90 days, I think I'm about 80 days now. Looking back at it, I'm like, man, yes, you did. You know, you had a
Mhm.
problem
For
with alcohol.
sure. Yeah. Jonah is, he does have a big event coming up. He's going to be graduating from our 90-day program. And one of the greatest gifts as a coach is to see people come in, no matter where they are with their relationship with alcohol, and see them grow and evolve. And when we look back at our prior relationship, it's never with judgment. It's just looking at it and thinking, again, I always ask the question, is alcohol serving you? And being able to look back and you can see like, wow, it was in the driver's seat more than I thought. Right. And I think people get hung up. Do you agree with this, Jonah? People get hung up on the labels. Like, am I an alcoholic? Well, I stopped for a month, so I guess I'm not an alcoholic. We don't even use that word in
Right.
our program. We just
Right.
don't. We just say, like I said, is your relationship with alcohol serving you, or are you serving it?
Mhm.
And there's power in saying, it really wasn't, and I choose this way of life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. That's one of the big like, and like, you were talking about this earlier on when I first started.
Mhm.
I think it was like my first week or whatever. But just dealing with truths, like,
Mhm.
and then looking back on it and seeing how much you kind of used opportunities to, like, mislead yourself, you know what I mean, thinking that
Yes.
you had control over something. And the thing is like, whenever you find yourself in that situation where you have a small problem, it's like what Jim was telling me. It was like those small problems turn to big problems. Like, it's
Exactly.
one of the one things that with alcohol is like, it is going to get worse. Like, you don't think about it, like it's like, oh, I'm having fun and it's great, you're having a good time, and then you're not. It's just,
Yes.
and it's all of a sudden, it's like a snap of a finger. So yeah. But
Yeah.
just being truthful with yourself, and then you know being truthful with myself, and then looking back and being honest about, like, I had there was an issue there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right, right. No. And Jonah shared something on a call the other week. He went somewhere and someone offered a drink, and he said something pretty bold, pretty defining. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was at my bachelor party, actually, and I wasn't drinking, and all my boys knew that I wasn't drinking, so it
Mhm.
didn't come from one of them. But there was a person that was like, "Oh, you're getting married? It's so great. Get a drink, get a drink." And instead of explaining to them that I was in P90 and telling them I'm taking a
Of
break, and
course.
I was like, "Look, I was just like, I don't drink." And then that
Mm,
was it.
mhm.
And
Right.
so that was really like, at that point, that was really liberating, and kind of like, I felt like a weight coming off my shoulders,
Yes.
having to explain anything. And it was like, this is your new self. You know what I mean? Like the introduction of your.
Bingo. Right. Right. We coach around that stuff. It's as big a deal as you make it.
Mhm.
You go in with like, oh, I'm in this program, and yeah, then it's people are going to be like, whoa, you're kind of a buzzkill. But if you go in, you're like, yeah, I'm not drinking today. And we even go so far in calls as to do like role play, like, hey, I'm the waiter. Hey, I'm that party friend of yours. Hey. And it just becomes second nature. And when you shared that on the call, I was like, oh yeah, he's solid. He's got it. That's awesome, Jonah. Thank you. Thank you. So in Project 90, we currently have members from 3 continents. I think about 5 or 6 different countries. So we're going to go hop across the pond and speak with Christian. Hi, Christian.
Hello, hello. So, welcome everybody. So, I'm from that funny little island called Great Britain. And I followed James, through a little bit like Jonah, through Facebook and so on and so forth. And it's something that he always tickled my conscience. But it was something that I didn't want to embrace. So I was aware of it because, to be absolutely honest, I didn't really think I had a drinking problem. So my sort of drinking was getting back from work and opening the fridge, having a glass of wine, to maybe half a bottle of wine, and that was pretty okay. I really didn't question it. And then on Fridays we'd often have a bit more socially and so on and so forth. But it was every day, so it was a habit, and it was a habit that obviously deep down I was conscious of, but not wrestling with. And then what happened to me 2 years ago? My wife died. And I've got 4 children. And in that process, I began to notice that I started leaning on the bottle even more. And the reason I was doing it was consciously, I was numbing out all my emotions. So that was a way of coping. And what I also felt with that coping mechanism, as I drank more, it didn't have a net effect that made me feel better. It actually had a net effect that made me feel worse. So it made me feel much more anxious. It made me making decisions became really difficult. I started losing clarity. I started having fog, and I wasn't conscious that this was alcohol. But I was conscious that I was beginning to have a problem. Now, that didn't surmise by totally me. It surmised by my 4 children. And they started to see me fall asleep in my chair. They started to recognize that if we watched a film the night before, I couldn't remember it in the morning. And that introduced to me a sense of shame, really. And it's a shame I carried down. I woke up with that sense of shame, and I carried that sense of shame downstairs in the morning. And I could see the kids looking at me in that questioning way. Can you remember? So that was really my motivation to try and do something about it. I had traveled along this path since Julie's illness, which was 4 years prior to her death. So I had 6 years really just trying to escape. And I realized I had to bite the bullet. And that I did with James, who I've obviously followed. And it introduced a world to me which I was not conscious of, because when you're drinking, or when I was drinking, it's a lonely world. It's a world that I don't share with my friends, but I'm aware. I notice they don't drink as quickly as I do. And so I'm conscious of it. So therefore, sometimes when I used to go out, I used to be careful what I drink. And then when I come home, I'd have more to drink, sort of on your own scenario. So with James and jumping on to his project, I suddenly found these like-minded people, and obviously quite a few from America and a few from Australia. And although it's the same language, it's a different language, but it's one where we all share the same thing, and that we all share this alcohol. I wouldn't even say it's a problem, but we share the same empathy of drinking so much. So we recognize a lot of traits from one another. And in it, it's a very secretive world, because you can share really your biggest problem and they'll come back and give you support. I've never had anything like this before. I've just been on my own with it. And suddenly I'm getting people who are telling me, no, that's perfectly all right. I've had that. I've done this, and this is normal. And you suddenly feel, wow, that's great. So it's a big strength, big strength.
Thank you. If you're listening and you can relate to Christian, drinking over grief, that is a big one. Whether it's a tangible loss or something else. We've all been through a lot the past year and a half, almost 2 years. Many of us have lost people, identities, our careers have changed. And then on top of that, real life still went on. We still lost people we loved. So when it comes to grief, I have a couple of questions if you're listening. Has alcohol really helped you with your grief? Did it lessen the grief?
Well, it helped by numbing it, but
Right.
it didn't help in any other way, really. And
Right.
and now, being clear-minded, what is helping me is to realize exactly where I am,
Mhm.
and to really acknowledge and take on board exactly what I have to accept. And
Yes.
that is the same with alcohol. So you're accepting not drinking. You're slightly worried by thinking that, God, I'm going to be really boring and most people won't find me very interesting and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. But that is the crutch of alcohol. And what you do begin to realize is actually, funny enough, you've got a huge amount to offer. And you can be even more dynamic without alcohol. And that's
Mhm.
something I've only just recently learned. So it gives you, it empowers you in a different way. And it's that journey, I think, which is much more interesting than the prior journey, really, which only gives you
Yes.
anxiety.
Yes. Right. The grief is still there. It's going to need to be dealt with at some point. It may delay the suffering, but it compounds it in so many
Yeah.
ways. And
But
I
it
think,
doesn't,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be grief because I think in life we all are dealing with different problems, and it can be a
Yes.
problem where a broken relationship, a loss of a
Mhm.
job, changes in your financial circumstances, and
Yes.
the way we treat alcohol is just go and have a drink,
Yeah,
and that is
exactly.
so. It's defining it like that and finding ways that will help you differently to deal with
Mhm.
it, and that's what I've learned really in the program so far.
That's wonderful. One thing I've observed with you, Christian, is as you've moved through this and are getting more and more comfortable with being alcohol free, is that your possibility of joy, the possibility of happiness, is not being stolen by alcohol. You're more
No,
open to the possibility of joy with your children, friends, just your interests in things again. I see you really having an awakening. It's wonderful to see.
well, that's interesting. That's an observancy on my life, and if so, I observe it with my children. And
Mhm.
and already a friend of mine has come back to me and said the other day that he spoke to my eldest and he said, Dad's really happy at the moment. And
Oh,
yeah, so that's just without me knowing anything, but that's interesting. That's without alcohol. So alcohol
isn't
is,
that something?
and it's not, I'm not conscious of. I'm not conscious of that because the
Mhm.
change is always very subtle. But what I do realize is
Yes.
that I have my good days like everybody else and my bad days.
Mhm.
And within this group, you can lean on the others, whereas I used to lean on alcohol. I can lean on the others and they can tell me and point me in the right direction. But what I don't sense is, or I'm beginning to sense, is the life without alcohol is a kinder life.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize things in a very different way.
Yes.
And it makes you enjoy things. And the other thing, which is fantastic, I'm sleeping like a baby. And and
Wonderful.
it's phenomenal. I've never slept like that. I'm 66. I've never slept like that for years.
Yes. I
So
love that. A more gentle life. I like
yeah,
that. Thank you, Christian. Let's see. And I'll say to our listeners, when Christian was sharing that about how his family observes him now, everyone's faces lit up. We had rounds of applause going on because we're in this together. And to hear things like that, it's contagious. That joy. I call it a dopamine hit. It's like everyone's brains are kind of having a nice little dose of that feel good stuff, and it's real and authentic. And oh, that's so great. Let's hear from Mike. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Victoria, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for
Good.
being here with us.
Yeah. So I have a history with alcohol, a relationship with alcohol back probably starting back in the college days and then got married and then we both drank and it just kind of evolved. It evolved to the point to where, as I became older, I retired in 2018 and I was looking for something more to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a part owner in a brewery. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a great choice, but that's what happened, and made a lot of good friends, and my social life developed, and I had a purpose again because we were literally building it from the ground up. So
Wonderful.
it did serve its purpose. However, I got to the point to where I would play a game with myself to where I'd like, well, if I'm going up there, I'd literally write down how many drinks. My goal was I would not surpass two beers or whatever it may be. And every time I would surpass it.
Mm,
So now I'm trying to control this. And even if I were at home and I would have wine, like only 2 glasses of wine, and then I'd wake up in the morning and first thing I'd do is look at the bottle and it would be almost empty.
yes.
And that's when I said, you know what? I need a new story.
Love that. Mm-hmm.
I need a new narrative. And that's why I finally felt that I need to be a grown up and face what's going on. And I know there's more, really the thing that drove me was there's more to life. Number one, I'm not capturing it. Number two, I'm not leaving a good example for my daughters.
Yes.
And so those two things I've addressed. And the result is the one thing I've noticed is I've been looking through a limited view. And P90 has really opened my viewpoint on what life is. It's not running from drink to drink to drink. It's okay to be quiet. It's okay to read. It's okay to take some downtime.
Yeah.
A kinder life, like Christian had pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be normal.
Yeah.
And this group has, stopping drinking is only the beginning for me. I mean, this project has bled into other areas of life to kind of like, well, if I can think clearer and I can sleep better and I have more energy, I can do some really impactful things in this world and in my life.
Wow.
And that's where my thought process is, and that's where I'm headed. And my daughters have already asked me about it every day. How do you feel, and on, because they knew I drank, and and they said, I'm really proud of you, and it means a lot.
Absolutely.
So
That's powerful. Going from alcohol is making my world small to, wow, I can pretty much do anything.
yeah, or at least let's see what we can do.
That's it. Right. We kind of know how this drinking thing goes. We promise ourselves 2 glasses. We wake up, we see the empty bottle. We say we're not going to do it again. 5 o'clock comes. The chatter starts. Okay, I'll just have 2 glasses. It's like Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I'm very happy I'm here, and it's I can't wait for the next chapter.
Absolutely. What a great feeling to say, I can't wait for the next chapter.
Absolutely.
Instead of, I know we all cringe when we think back, but waking up and thinking, how do I get through the day?
Yeah.
Changes to, I can't wait for the next chapter. That's awesome, Mike. Thank you. All right, let's keep moving. Let's hear from John and then Raj. Hello, John.
Hello, Victoria, and hey to all the listeners on the podcast as well. So I'm about 80 days into this program now, and so it's a distant memory of what I used to think and feel, for barriers to why I wouldn't, go on this journey. But thinking about it, and I'm sure, I thought about it for a long time. It was one of those things where I recognized alcohol probably wasn't serving me, like we talk about. But I also had this story in my head that I needed it to have fun, to blow off some steam at the end of the week, maybe at the end of the day, that I needed it to deal with the stress, whether it's, Q4 end of the year stuff like right now, or at any time of the year, big project, stress of parenting. I have 2 young boys, very high energy. They're great, but there's stress in any parenting, no matter how lovely your kids are. And then, like I've got some really good buddies that we've been pals for a long time, and we love to get together and drink beer and watch sports. And, there's a social aspect to my work as well. So business lunches, business dinners, why not have a nice glass of wine? And so there was, definitely it was pervasive. And the story was that I needed it because that's the story we're told. And it's also, even once I started realizing, you know what, I'm not feeling that great. It's not really fun anymore. There weren't really many options for what I didn't know where to turn, what to do.
Right.
We're set up to drink. And I think that's particularly true now going into the holiday season, but really at any time of the year, right? Like it is so pervasive. It's the harder thing to do is to choose not to. And that's where I love the support of this group, and the mentality and the approach of this group. Like you guys were talking about already, it's not about a label of alcoholic, non-alcoholic. It's not a judgment, but it is just sort of a recognition of like, hey, this isn't working. Let's try something different. And let's choose that we have, James talks about taking power back over alcohol. And I loved that approach, because the real undercurrent for me of like one of the reasons why it was so hard for me to try to figure out how to go alcohol free was the other story I told myself was around shame and around if I admit that I can't hold my liquor, right? Because that's what a man does in Western society, and a business, someone who's successful. Then like I'm a label of an alcoholic. I'm a loser.
Yes.
I'm, like all those sort of that negative story. But then I would look at my life and say like, well, I'm married, I have kids, I have a house, I'm debt free, I have a great job, my colleagues like me. I'm not a loser. Well, therefore I can drink. Right. And so, and what I loved about this program is that like, it really spoke to me in that way of like, it's not black or white about like an absolute one way or an absolute the other way. But yeah, let's recognize that if it's not working, then like, why would you keep doing it? And let's find out what it can look like if we take that choice to go alcohol free.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, John. Right. So John just summarized so much of what separates us from other paths to becoming alcohol free. So John was experiencing, okay, on one hand, I can't get my head around this alcohol thing. And in every other area of his life, he's a high performer. He's got it together. He's got a successful job. He's debt free, he has a house, he has a wife, he has children, friends. So what is it about this thing? So naturally, as problem solvers, we try to solve the alcohol thing. But as I've said in many episodes, and I say on the calls, alcohol has its own agenda. Alcohol is an addictive substance. This is not something you can will into submission. And the problem comes when, like he said, you come to that fork in the road. You're like, okay, wait, yeah, all right. You know what? I got to find a way to put this behind me. And what do you have? You have shame. You have a label. You have people giving you the side eye and wondering, how bad did it get that he had to stop? That's obscene and ridiculous and completely antiquated. And that's why we do what we do.
Totally. Yeah, I joined. I just for like, I had no clue about you guys until, but I was ready. I was like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm ready. But I think it was maybe less than 48 hours from when I listened to one of your podcasts to when I like signed up for the program, because I was like, yes, I read so people listening, go read the free document, the alcohol freedom formula.
Yes.
Take a read through that. If any of that resonates with you, it might be time to to jump into this, because that resonated 100% with me. And then I was in.
Fantastic. Yeah. John, did as suggested. We said, dive in, get in there, get to know people, get on the calls, and he did. And I mean, you're just completely awesome. Everyone in here loves John, and he's so supportive. And like I've said before, also vulnerable, because you don't have to wear the mask. You can say, oh my man, it's like 4:00. I really want a beer. And no one's going to go, oh, seriously? But they will come and support you. And I know you guys will all agree there's nothing cooler than seeing a member show up with that vulnerability. And then the next day they post and they're like, I feel awesome today. Because if you're listening, you know, you never wake up in the morning and say, whoa, I'm so glad I drank last night. So how do you get to that morning alcohol free? You don't do it alone. You do it with us. Okay, let's finish up with Raj. Hi, Raj.
Hey, Coach V. So, one of the really kind of amazing things about this program and, being the last one who's sharing now is when somebody shares, every time somebody shares, actually, you can always relate to what someone says. And just like everyone here, I felt like my biggest barrier to quitting alcohol was how am I going to have any kind of social life? Everyone I know drinks. Every single one of my friends drinks. Everybody in my family drinks. And I just could not imagine, being the one who didn't. And I didn't want to be the outlier. Every time there is someone who's not drinking, it's always, they never look like they're having a good time. They always are just quiet in the corner, and they kind of admittedly will say, like, I wish I could drink. The people who are just taking a break, or the people who don't drink at all, you could just sense that they don't even want to be around the drinkers. And, it was just, I didn't understand how I could ever have a social life without drinking. And even, as an extension of that, I didn't really understand how I could ever have fun without drinking. For me, drinking it started out as a social activity, kind of nightlife, parties, bars, that kind of stuff. But it actually evolved into, just trying to have fun in any kind of moment, whether, it's just a day at the pool, even a day at the park with your kids. It doesn't matter what it was. Alcohol just made everything more fun. And that's kind of a fact. Like, we wouldn't have done it for so long if it wasn't fun at first. And that first 2 to 4 hours is fun. Even sitting here right now, I've been alcohol free for 70 days. I think if I were to pick up a drink again, I think that first couple hours would be fun. But then it's we all know it's the rest of the night, the end of the night, which you barely remember how much fun is that. And then the first day hangovers were only a day. Then they became like 2-day hangovers. And then you even start realizing, like, even after the hangovers were worn off, I was just thinking about, okay, Friday night, when am I going to get to drink again? And it starts to occupy so much time in your head that you start to realize, like, this isn't just, I was never an everyday drinker. I only drank on the weekends, but I drank a lot on the weekends. And even if I wasn't drinking during the week, I was thinking about it. I was waiting to drink on Friday, Saturday nights. And, this program wasn't actually on my radar at all. I didn't ever think I was going to try to quit drinking forever. Quit drinking mostly. I just thought it was a lifelong obsession, was trying to control it. Only drink on Friday nights, only drink on Saturday nights, because I didn't understand how I could have fun without it. But I actually had a friend who did this program, and we were working out one day, and he had just mentioned that he mentioned casually, like, oh, I haven't drank in 2 months, and I know that he had just went to a bachelor party the week before. And I was like, oh, you mean except for the bachelor party, right? And he's like, no. And I just like looked at him like, wait, you just went to Cabo, and I know his friends, and I know, they're a hard drinking group. And I'm just like, you just went to this bachelor party in Cabo with these guys, and you didn't have any alcohol. And the first thing I'm thinking is, why did you even go? Like, what was the point of spending that money going if you weren't going to drink? And he's like, oh, I had the best time in the world. And he was describing the things they did, how much fun he had. And I could, I know this guy, I've known him for over 10 years. I know his friends. And I could see it in his eyes, like just his demeanor, how much fun he had on that trip. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. I really could not wrap my head around how that was possible. And I was just confused. I was so confused. And, he mentioned this program, and I, like John just mentioned, I just downloaded the guide. And this program really is directed at, having fun, having all the things you have in your life that you enjoy, and maintaining that. And, I signed up within 2 days, and, I'm sitting here at day 70, and I can honestly say I am having I'm having more fun than I was when I was drinking. I really am. I haven't had a hangover in over 2 months. And, I still enjoy going out with my buddies, doing all that kind of stuff. And, towards the end of the night, they get annoying sometimes, but it's, the first week I decided to go to a baseball game. I had never stepped out of a professional baseball game without being completely blitzed, because over the course of a 3-hour game, you're going to drink a lot of beer, and that was just one of my favorite things to do. And I just had more fun at that game than I had in years. And yeah, really, it just became about, just understanding that you can still have all the things you thought you couldn't socially and enjoying life and having fun without the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to add, and unfortunately for me, I'm a stubborn and skeptical guy by nature, and
You
so
are?
I need, yeah, and so because I had the visual, physical proof in front of me, that's what that unfortunately was what sold me on it. And I wish, people listening knew me. I wish they knew anybody in this group. I wish they had access to somebody like that so they could see that this isn't, this isn't fake. We're not trying to sell you on
Mhm.
something that
Nope.
it's not about that. It really is about, I mean, it can change your life, and it has definitely changed my life.
Thanks, Raj. Yeah. Raj is getting some applause too from the peanut gallery. Absolutely. Yeah, we're here because actually Raj inspired the idea for this because of something he said on a call last week about this being priceless, about the return on investment, the time and energy you put into this. You can't measure the results. You can't measure the energy saved, the time repairing relationships, kind of fixing whatever damage you did over the weekend. So an exercise I do with clients, sometimes with members, is I'll say, okay, let's just try to break this down. The only thing we can measure is money. So look at your annual income, what you made last year. Okay, then break it down into a month. Then break it down into a day, then an hour, and then a minute. Okay, so all right, that's what you make per minute. Now, if you can, count how much time you spend either thinking about drinking, actively drinking, recovering from drinking, which, Raj summed it up. Yep, hangovers used to be a day, then they're like 2, and repairing the damage you did while you were drinking, trying to make it up to people, trying to figure out what to say, how to frame that promise so they'll actually believe it this time. How many minutes? What is that costing you? Because again, all we can measure is money. But when you look at it that way, you go, wow, energy units, clutter in your head, the chatter, right? So, if any of this resonates with you, we have, why didn't I tackle my relationship with alcohol? We had deprivation, didn't want to be deprived. We had, am I an alcoholic? If I'm an alcoholic, I have to stop. Well, wait, let me reframe that and ask the question, is alcohol serving me? What about that? What if I reframe it from a label to just a question to get curious about? Grief. Is alcohol really helping you with any of your pain? Okay, it numbs it out for a few hours. It comes back with teeth. It's stealing your present, stealing any opportunities that you may have for joy, keeping you stuck. Going from a small world, your world's small, like you're looking through a keyhole, to I can do some amazing things. Let's see what's possible. I can't wait for the next chapter. Like, wow. And then alcohol's not serving me, but I need it for stress. Boy, I know that's a big one. I need it for stress, but it's making me more stressed. How's this? This doesn't make sense to me. I got to do something about it. Ugh, but I don't want that label, because then people tilt their head and give me the side eye like, oh boy. No, quite the opposite. Actually, I'm empowering myself to reframe this and show up as my authentic self, as a person who fixes problems, is organized, gets life done. If it's not working for me, I figure it out and I put it behind me, because that's what we do. And then, yeah, I am never going to be I'm never actually going to be able to have fun without alcohol. And then the reframe, as he's experienced now 70 days, Raj is like, I'm not missing out now. I was missing out then, because I was trading those couple of hours. I was trading that for 20 hours of misery. So ask yourself, is that, quote, fun, which is really just a biochemical reaction to an addictive substance that causes a high. Is it worth the hours of misery? And then count it in units, count it in dollars. How many minutes is it stealing? What do you make in a minute? So if any of that sounds familiar, I don't know. Do you guys think they should wait any longer, or should they just get it over with?
Start now.
I wanted to add that because I had gone, I had trying to abstain before, and I've gone 30, 40, 50, or no, I went 90 days. And obviously towards the end of those 90 days, I really felt that need to drink. And so when I was on, the initial call about whether or not I should join this program, I asked the counselor, so shouldn't I try to go as long as I can on my own first and then start this program when I'm really struggling? And he kind of said, well, you're just delaying the inevitable. I mean, and it's not about just getting through 90 days for this program. It's learning. It's actually teaching your mind to not want to drink. So it doesn't matter when you start. I mean, whether you, drank yesterday or whether you've already been going for a while, the right time to start is now, because it's not about just getting through 90 days. It's about learning to not drink.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Jump in.
Yeah.
I know if I'm being honest, I had a hangover day one. I'm not gonna,
Oh yeah, we see that a lot.
yeah, and that was just the truth. But the one thing that I wanted to add is I think it was John was speaking to the shame that comes about. You if you're listening to this podcast or you're trying to search for ways to figure out how to get a hold of this, you are one of the things that I was reminded of from the gym, from talking to Jim. It's like you are the leader that you think you are, right? You're thinking about doing this because you know that you have more to give. You have more inside of you, and there's something pulling you in that direction. And that part about the shame, I felt it. I mean, I called Jim that first day. I felt bad. I had tears in my eyes. I was calling. I was like, man, I feel bad. I can't believe I let it get to this, and all this stuff like that. And he was like, no, man. He was like, you're here because you're a leader. You're here because there's something that needs to change, and you're taking the steps towards it. And so for that, as I continue through the 90 days, last couple of days I have left here, just thinking about that conversation, knowing how big of an obstacle this has been, and then coming out of this, having the confidence to be able to, essentially tackle just about anything in front of me moving forward. So
wow, huge mindset shift there, right?
Yeah.
Not I'm weak, I can't do this, I can't get a handle on this by myself. No, actually, you're a leader. You're showing up with your relationship around alcohol the same way you show up in every other area of your life. This has been so fantastic, guys. Thank you all for being here, for giving your time. This is just, there's nothing better than hearing from our members, because they're doing it right now. So I hope you will too. Please book that call with me. Let's go. Let's get it rolling. What are you waiting for? Everyone in here was right where you are now. And as you can hear, it's been a game changer in every area. So if you are ready to get a hold of this, reach out to me, alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. Have a chat with Coach V. Thanks again, guys, for being here, and have an awesome rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to load you up with some free stuff. If you look in the show description, there's a link there to get my guide, which is the Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide. And in that guide, I will walk you through the process and system for successfully reducing or quitting alcohol. It's the same system and process that I give to my clients inside of Project 90. And if you would like to get your hands on that guide, you can click the link in the description part of this episode, or you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. Likewise, if you would like to be considered for Project 90 to join our community and get some accountability, some coaching, and have fun, achieve some goals over at least 90 days with our help and support, then you're invited to schedule a complimentary coaching call with one of my coaches. You can do that by clicking the link in the show description or going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. Now, Project 90 is for over 30s only, and it's really for people who are ready to get long-term power over alcohol. You don't have to quit forever, but you will have to quit for at least 90 days with our support. Just a reminder, 95% of my content is free and plastered all over the internet. If you just Google James Swanwick and the word alcohol, you'll find that. For those of you who want additional support, if you want coaching, fun, accountability, if you realize that you can't do this on your own or you just plain don't want to, then I invite you to schedule that call and we can talk about if Project 90 is for you. If you would like to take some of my supplements, swanvitality.com is the website. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. I have a liver support product called Loving Liver, which I designed and specially formulated to help remove toxins from your liver after years of alcohol consumption. Again, there's a link in the show description. We've also got a green powder there, which turns into a green juice filled with amazing ingredients to support you and give you energy throughout the day. And there's also a magnesium product, which I take every night to help me prepare for sleep and to sleep through the night. So there's a few options there. Lastly, if this episode or the show in general has helped you or supported you in any way, I would so appreciate it if you would write a review. It really does help the show climb the rankings and expose the show to people who don't yet know about us. So if this show has benefited you in any way and you feel compelled to pay it forward, just writing a short little review, hopefully a nice one, will be so appreciated and I will thank you immensely. Lastly, if you'd like to talk to me about anything at all, feel free to send me an email at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. I do read and respond to every email. And you can also follow me on Instagram at James Swanwick. Send me a message there. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Catch you on the next one.